let's continue on then with number 4 here at the bottom of page 93. Thus I have heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was living at Savatthi in Jettis Grove in Anathapindika's park. Too many syllables for me. There he addressed the monks thus. Monks, a monk who is an inquirer, not knowing how to gauge another's mind, should make the investigation of the Tathagata in order to find out whether or not he is perfectly enlightened. So, again, evaluating the teacher. Number 4, fortunately these paragraphs are numbered, I can refer to those. Number 4, a monk should investigate the Tathagata with respect to 2 kinds of states. States cognizable through the eye and through the ear thus. Are there found in Tathagata or not any defiled states cognizable through the eye or through the ear? When he investigates, he comes to know no defiled states cognizable through the eye or through the ear are found in the Tathagata. So then he goes on in 5 and he says, are there any mixed states? And in 6, are there any non-cleansed states? In number 7, has this Venerable One attained this wholesome state over a long time, or did he attain it recently? And he says over a long time. And then number 8, he investigates further. Has this Venerable One acquired renown and attained fame, so that the dangers connected with renown and fame are found in him? And top of page 95, second line, he comes to know this Venerable One has acquired renown and fame, but the dangers connected with renown and fame are not found in him. So he may be famous, but he's not caught up in the fame in any way. That's always one of the dangers. You know, I taught leadership, and so that's one of the things that comes up in leadership all the time is people get up to a certain level and get a certain level of recognition, and then they turn into narcissists and things like that. Okay, number 9 here. Then he investigates further, and is the Venerable One restrained without fear, not restrained by fear, and avoid indulging in sensual pleasures because he is without lust through the destruction of lust? He is restrained. Number 10, if others should ask, what are the Venerable One's reasons and what is his evidence? Then, this is kind of a long paragraph, but down a few lines here, that monk would answer thus. So he's talking not directly to the Tathagata is the one answering the question, but he's talking as if the person was talking to another monk answering about the Tathagata. Whether that Venerable One dwells in the Sangha or alone, some there are well behaved and some are ill behaved. Some there teach, some are concerned about material things, some are unsullied by material things. Still, the Venerable One does not despise anyone because of that. So I think that's an important statement, that yes, there are people within the Sangha that he's talking about there that have these issues. They haven't perfected themselves yet. The Venerable One has been affected by some of those states, but they don't affect him in the same way and aren't bothered because of that. But I always want to say the Dalai Lama. The Buddha is open to and recognizes what's going on with these people, and he doesn't despise any of them because of the issues that they're trying to deal with. Number 11, the Tathagata monks should be questioned further. Are there any defiled states cognizable through the eye or through the ear? And then the answer is no. Are there any mixed states? No. Are there any are there found or not cleansed states? And he says, they are my pathway and my domain, yet I do not identify with them. On the next page, 96, number 14, monks, a disciple should approach the teacher who speaks thus in order to hear the Dharma. The teacher teaches the Dharma with its successively higher levels, with its dark and bright counterparts. Through direct knowledge of a certain teaching, the monk comes to the conclusion about the teachings. He places confidence in the teacher. Number 15, if others should ask what is its evidence, and then talks to the monk responds that the Blessed One taught me. Through direct knowledge of certain teaching, I came to the conclusion about the teachings. I placed confidence in the teacher. So the monk follower did the practices. He developed confidence through doing the practices and the experience that he gained from doing the practices. Then number 16, monks, when anyone's faith has been planted, rooted, and established in the Tathagata through these reasons, terms, phrases, his faith is said to be supported by reasons, rooted in vision, firm. It is invincible by any ascetic or Brahmin or Deva or Mara or Brahma, or by anyone in the world. That is how, monks, there is an investigation of the Tathagata in accordance with the Dharma. And that is how the Tathagata is well investigated in accordance with the Dharma. So going through all of these kinds of questionings, asking, and so forth, but the same thing could be true of you asking me as a teacher. You can ask me questions about those kind of things. I'd say, read the answers here. But that's part of the process, is if you've got doubts, ask the questions. But do the practices too. You know, if you ask me a question and I say, do this practice, and you don't do the practice, you're not going to get the real answer, the answer based on your experience. Okay, so we have to be careful about that as well. Number 5, then, are steps toward the realization of truth. Now, this is a fairly long one here, so I'm not going to touch on quite as many points and try to pick out some that I think are the most important ones here. So I'm starting on page 97, and about 2/3 or so of the way down in number 12, paragraph 12 there. Then he said to the Blessed One, Master Gautama, in regard to the ancient Brahma hymns that have come down through oral transmission, preserved in the collections, the Brahmins have come to the definitive conclusion. Only this is true, anything else is wrong. And so then there's a discussion about that, because it brings up the point of right, wrong in terms of competing religions, let's say. Number 13, then, is there even a single Brahmin who actually says this? I know this, I see this, only this is true, anything else is wrong. And the person with whom he's discussing says, no, Master Gautama. So he's raised all these questions, but he says, I don't know anybody that actually says that. Okay, and then this gets repeated over and over again in lots of different contexts here. So go on to number 14 on page 98. And then first second paragraph, first you took your stand on faith, now you speak of oral tradition. There are 5 things. What 5? Faith, approval, oral tradition, reasoned cognition, and acceptance of a view as a result of pondering it. These 5 things may turn out in 2 different ways, here and now. Something may be fully accepted out of faith, yet it may be empty, hollow, and false. Something else may not be fully accepted out of faith, yet it may be factually true and unmistaken. Again, something well transmitted, well cognated, well pondered, all of those things that he listed as ways to doing these, are included here. Under these conditions, it is not proper or wise for a man and a woman who preserves truth to come to a definitive conclusion, only this is true. Anything else is wrong. And so that goes back to the idea of the 84,000 different paths. There's lots of ways to get there. But, Master Gautama, in what way is there the preservation of truth? So here's talking about this principle of preservation of truth is a whole different one. So I'm on top of 99, second paragraph there. If a person has faith, he preserves truth when he says, my faith is thus. But he does not come to the definitive conclusion, only this is true. Anything else is wrong. In this way, we describe the preservation of truth, but as yet, there is no discovery of truth. Okay? So it's more of a relative proposition at this case. And then he goes through the other four, same way, same questions and same answers. So in this way, we describe preservation of truth, but there is no discovery of truth. In what way does one discover truth then? Number 17, a monk may be living in dependence on some village or town. A householder or a householder's son goes to him and investigates him in regard to three kinds of states. States based on greed, states based on hate, and states based on delusion. Are there in this monk any states based on greed such that while not knowing he might say, I know, or while not seeing he might say, I see, or he might urge others to act in this way, in a way that would lead to either to their harm and suffering for a long time. As he investigates him, he comes to know there is no such states based on greed in this monk. Just doesn't have the right answer. Okay? And then in 18, he next investigates him in regard to states based on hate. And so a lot of this is the same. So he then, a few lines down, he comes to know there are no such states based on hate in this monk. And then in 19, he next investigates him in regard to states based on delusion. And again, he comes to know there are no such states based on delusion in the monk. And then in 20, then he places his faith in him, pays respect, gives him ear, hears the Dharma, memorizes it, examines the meaning, accepts those teachings as a result of pondering them. Desire springs up, he applies his will, he scrutinizes, he strives, he realizes with the body of supreme truth and sees it by penetrating it with wisdom. In this way, there is the discovery of truth. So he's just outlined step by step how to go through the process of discovering the actual truth of something. But he goes on, but as yet there is no final arrival at truth. Okay? So we've discovered some things about it, and yes, it appears to be true, but is it ultimately true or not? So he goes on in 21, starting on the fourth line, in what way does one finally arrive at truth? Next paragraph, the final arrival at truth lies in the repetition, development, and cultivation of those same things. So the things that were done before were primarily cognitive processes. So now you've got to go beyond that and really developing the neural pathways in the brain. So in 22 on the third line, but what, Master Gautama, is the most helpful for the arrival at truth? In the next paragraph he replies, striving is the most helpful. If one does not strive, one will not arrive at truth. So it takes some effort for this to happen. In number 23, but what is the most helpful for striving? Scrutiny is the most helpful for striving. So now we're going to go through several things here. 24, what is the most helpful for scrutiny? Application of the will. What is the most helpful for application of the will? Desire is the most helpful for application of the will. So you see, desire is important. It's not in and of itself positive or negative. In Dzogchen, we often talk about the fact when you look at a word, in and of itself it's not good or bad, but kind of like Shakespeare said, thinking makes it so. So we apply things that we believed or to discern something as being what we believe to be bad or believe to be good. But the word itself is just a word. Okay? So desire is the most helpful for the application of will. In 26, what is the most helpful for desire? Accepting the teachings as a result of pondering them. What is the most helpful for accepting the teachings as a result of pondering them? Examination of the meaning. In 28, what is the most helpful for the examination of meaning? Memorizing the teachings. What is the most helpful for memorizing the teachings? Hearing the Dharma. Number 30, what is the most helpful for hearing the Dharma? And giving ear is the most helpful for the hearing of Dharma. Number 31, what is the most helpful for giving ear? Paying respect. Number 32, what is the most helpful for paying respect? At the top of page 103, visiting is the most helpful for paying respect. Visit the teacher. Pay respect to the teacher. Number 33, what is the most helpful for visiting? Faith is the most helpful for visiting. Faith in a teacher. But if it does not arise, one will not visit him. But because faith in the teacher arises, one does visit him. That is why faith is the most helpful for visiting. And then at the very bottom, magnificent Master Gautama, magnificent Master Gautama. From today, let Master Gautama remember me as a lay follower who has gone to him for refuge for life. So, he goes through a lot of different aspects here in terms of what does that mean and how do we put all of that together. But it's helpful in some way to help provide a little broader context about how that fits together, how that works. But the bottom line is that you've got to go to the teacher, you've got to get the teachings, and then you have to put them into practice. Use them over and over and over again in order to develop what I would say are the neural pathways, but of course it's the habit of actually doing these things in a way that's beneficial, and not just routinely doing them without thinking about them, but at the same time pondering what you're doing, thinking about that and how it's working, how is it benefiting or how is it not benefiting, as the case may be, and so forth. So the variety of things that come into being as a part of this one. So that's the end of this section.